We open with several shocking terror attacks in central Israel and Jerusalem. In today's most recent attack, 9 people are injured and 1 is dead after a stabbing spree in southern Tel Aviv. The assailant reportedly stabbed 2 people at the Jaffa port, another 2 near Jaffa's main plaza, and 2 more near the Dolphinarium on the border with Tel Aviv. The final 2 victims were stabbed at random points during the spree. Police have shot and neutralized the Jaffa stabber, and Israeli security claim there is no threat of a second attacker in the area. This is only the first of 3 attacks today. Earlier in the day, 2 Israeli border police officers were seriously injured in a drive-by shooting attack near the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. The gunmen opened fire at police officers near the entrance of the Old City, striking 1 in the head and shooting a second officer during an attempted escape. The Israeli police spokesperson says he's been shot dead and that both victims are being treated in a Jerusalem hospital. Less than an hour before the Jerusalem attack, a man was stabbed by a suspected terrorist in the central Israeli city Petah Tikva. He managed to pull the assailant's knife out of his neck and stab him to death with it. The victim is now being treated for moderate injuries. The Hamas terror group has already expressed the group's support for the attacks in Israel today, calling the terrorists heroic martyrs.
Are you out of your minds? That's what the Israeli Prime Minister is asking several Arab Knesset members, following their declaration of support for the Lebanese terror group Hezbollah.
2 Arab Israeli parties are slamming Gulf Arab states for declaring that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. Last Wednesday, the 6-member Gulf Cooperation Council blacklisted the group for its incitement and terror activity in Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. Hezbollah is openly committed to destroying Israel and reportedly has over 100,000 rockets and missiles aimed at the Jewish state. Yet the knowledge hasn't stopped the Hadash and Balad parties from the Joint Arab List from issuing a statement condemning the Saudi move. The Israeli Arab lawmakers argue that labeling Hezbollah as a terrorist group serves Israeli interests and prolongs the occupation. The Israeli minister Israel Katz is calling for disciplinary steps to be taken against the lawmakers for their statements. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu is sharing his astonishment with the Knesset.
אני בכוונה השארתי לסוף את יחסינו עם העולם הערבי. אותו עולם ערבי שמדינות מרכזיות בו החליטו להכריז על חיזבאללה כארגון טרור. זו התפתחות חשובה ביותר. והיא אפילו מדהימה. אבל מה שלא פחות מדהים, זה ששתי מפלגות כאן בכנסת גינו את ההחלטה הזאת של מדינות המפרץ. אני רוצה להגיד לכם, אתם גם תמשיכו לגנות אותם, שחיזבאללה יירה טילים על הכפרים שלכם, הוא מבדיל בין דם לדם, הוא רוצה להשמיד את המדינה, אתם אזרחי המדינה, אתם בתוך המדינה. אתם נפלתם על השכל, סליחה, על הביטוי. אתם מגנים את מדינות המפרץ שמכריזות על חיזבאללה כארגון טרור?
We hear a lot about Israel going after suspected terrorists, but this time the Palestinian Authority is making the arrests. PA security services say they've arrested a group of Hamas members in the West Bank, and their big bust may save Israeli lives.
The Palestinian security services have uncovered a Hamas terror cell in the West Bank, which they say was planning terror attacks against Israelis. Palestinian intelligence says the cell was in Hebron, and it was planning shootings and kidnappings against Israel. The Hamas terror group is from Gaza, but it also has a bureau that oversees terror attacks in the West Bank. Palestinian intelligence started making arrests a few weeks ago, and since then they've continued to arrest the group's members in Hebron. Israeli sources have also confirmed the arrests, and it looks like Israel and the Palestinian Authority are working to keep Hamas members out of the West Bank. The Hamas bureau in the West Bank has also been accused of using Gazans with travel permits to carry money back and forth to fund attacks against Israelis. While Israel and the Palestinian Authority disagree on a lot of things, it looks like they're both committed to keeping Hamas out of the West Bank.
As a wave of terror in Israel rages on, you might think that Israelis enlisting in the army want to avoid joining high-risk units. It turns out the opposite is true. The IDF says that requests to join the Israeli Border Patrol have increased by 5-fold over the last 5 years.
According to the data, an average of 6.2 soldiers submit requests for every Border Patrol position that opens up in the Army. The number has increased sharply since 2011, when only a mere 1.17 soldiers requested a spot per open slot. Serving on Israel's Border Patrol is even popular among female recruits, and the majority of the Israeli women who request combat positions ask to join the Border Guard. 132 new women and 352 male fighters are expected to join the Border Patrol in next March's army recruitment. The Border Guard's main task is to secure Israel's borders, but the unit has also been deployed to assist the IDF in counterterrorism operations in the West Bank and Jerusalem. If you're wondering what the second most requested unit in the army is, it's a Gavadi Brigade, which is an infantry brigade in charge of fighting terrorism near the Gaza Strip.
Having a child is a beautiful thing, but driving your child around to all of her activities can be a bit of a drag. You basically become a taxi driver without the pay, wasting gas money and time as you wait in traffic. But what if there was a way to band together with other parents to make the whole process easier? It turns out there is. Liat Avidor-Peleg is the founder of the Israeli startup Carpools, and she's here with a solution. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, thank you for having me.
What is Carpools?
Carpools is a mobile app, carpooling mobile app for parents and kids. It is for streamlining and managing all the carpools. I'm a mother of 3 kids, and my second job, or maybe my first job, is to drive them around. To share the load, I carpool with other parents, which is great. I mean, it saves money and time, and it saves the environment, of course. But it has so much logistics around it. Who's the driver? Who are the passengers? How come it's my turn to drive again? So the app is coming
kind
to
of the inspiration
solve that.
behind it.
Exactly.
So what is the difference between Carpools and other applications like WhatsApp, or just asking your friends if they're willing to drive your kid to school?
Actually, messaging apps are part of the problem, not so much the solution. There are infinite threads of who's taking my kid? Is it you? No, I'm the driver. I'm changing. One drive, we had like 50 messages, and we said, okay, there's got to be another solution. And we looked for a solution, and we couldn't find one. So we said, okay, that's where we come in, and we came up with inventing Carpools.
So what kind of functions do you offer on the app?
The main functionality is having actually at a glance all the important information. So when you look at one screen, you can tell the time, where to, where from, who's the driver, who are the passengers. All members of the carpool are in sync at all times. It's updated all the time. I mean, if I'm saying that my daughter is not coming, all I have to do is tag, and the whole carpoolers are in the know-how. That's one thing. The other thing is that I put my preferences as a parent, like there are certain days I can't drive, and the algorithm calculated according to my preferences, all the other parents' preferences, of course, and fairness, which is very important as well.
Yeah, fairness is a big thing, right?
Exactly.
You don't want to be driving every single day.
Right.
So what are the other functions that you're kind of planning to put into the app for in the future?
Like optimal route, what's the best route to take all the kids in the neighborhood, and some kind of notifications to the kids telling them get out, because I don't want to be waiting for each and every kid for 5 minutes, which is sometimes more than the driving time. Of course, which is what is very, very important for the parents, is making sure your kid was picked up and dropped off safely, because you're not home always, and you want to know that your kid was safely picked up from where he was supposed to be picked up. And some more features down the road.
So I wanted to ask you about the fact, one of the main issues and causes of air pollution in Israel is actually cars, right? And so, you have a lot of individuals driving on their cars, and they're not necessarily driving with multiple people, when they could be carpooling to make the process easier and better for the world. So, in a lot of senses, you could say what you've created is good for the environment, right?
Exactly. I don't think it's only an Israeli problem. It's a worldwide problem, and we see lots of ride-sharing apps, because this is part of a global movement to reduce the pollution. But the nice thing about carpooling kids is that you don't only save the money, you also save the time, which is very crucial to all of us, working and not working parents.
So where is the application already in use? You said obviously it's something that's positive for the entire world. Is it only available here in Israel or in other countries as well?
No, actually it's live in the app stores, in Apple, in Google Play, so you can download it wherever you want. It's still in beta MVP mode, but most of our users are actually North Americans because they already know, they're educated to carpool. It's part of the culture. Here we still need to do some education.
Well, it looks like you're doing a good thing right now because you're teaching people that they can carpool, and it will save a lot of time and money. So good for you guys, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We often hear about impressive historical discoveries in Jerusalem, but it looks like archaeologists have just made a big find near Bethlehem. For the first time ever, there's proof that the ancient city was thriving over 4,000 years ago.
Italian and Palestinian archaeologists have discovered a massive Canaanite burial ground near Bethlehem. The finding establishes that the city was functioning 4,200 years ago, thanks to its strategic position between Jerusalem and Hebron. The necropolis contains more than 100 tombs, and it's been named Khalet al-Jama. Researchers believe the burial ground dates back from around 2200 BCE to 650 BCE. Archaeologists claim the limestone rock tombs were intended for generations of the same family. And although many of them have been looted in the past, they were able to retrieve lots of ancient artifacts from the surrounding area. Fine bowls, jugs, lamps, and Bronze Age weapons and scarabs show the direct connection between the pharaonic court in the Nile Delta and the ruling class in southern Palestine. The Hebrew kings of Judah took control of Bethlehem in the 8th century BCE, and the burial site was apparently abandoned after the Assyrians conquered Judah.
It's officially International Women's Day. Israel is known for being a leader in the Middle East when it comes to women's rights, and the Holy Land is full of amazing women that we think you should know about. So sit tight because we're going to tell you about 5 impressive Israeli women who are making the Holy Land proud.
First of all, we have to say there's definitely more than 5 amazing Israeli women, but we just want to highlight a few of these special ladies for you. The first one is Lucia Harish, who is an Israeli Arab Muslim journalist and is known for being outspoken in her support of Israel. She's repeatedly spoken out against terrorism, and she even was selected to be a torchlighter for Israel's Independence Day ceremony last year. The next Israeli woman we want you to know about is Dr. Ruth, who you might know from her famous sex therapy show. She's certainly a firecracker, but you might not know that she was also a sniper in Israel's War for Independence in 1948. Our next amazing woman is the Ethiopian-Israeli Knesset member Pnina Tamano-Shata, who's broken a ton of social barriers to become the first Ethiopian-Israeli woman in the Knesset. And if you think it would be cool to be a Supreme Court justice, then you'll definitely love our next pick. Miriam Naor is not only a justice in the Israeli Supreme Court, she's a Chief Justice. Talk about women in power. And finally, we want to recognize Israeli chemist Ada Yonath, the first Israeli woman to win a Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her work on ribosomes. Quite the group of power women, right? There's so many more groundbreaking Israeli women we can talk about who have broken barriers in fields often dominated by men. So we should celebrate their lives every day instead of just on International Women's Day.
All this talk about Israel's amazing women brings us to our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is ima, which means mother in Hebrew. We can probably all agree that our mothers are some of the most strong and important women in our lives, and we think they deserve a little recognition on International Women's Day. Israelis like to say en kmo ima, or there's no one like mom. We think they're right. After all, it's moms that make the world go round. Imas are strong women, and they can inspire a lot of fear. Just think about all those times you forgot to do your chores before your ima got home. It's that very fear that's inspired the phrase imale, which Israelis often use to express fear, shock, or surprise. If an Israeli teenager forgets to clean his room, he might exclaim imale with worry. And to get out of the situation, he could look at his watch with surprise and tell his mom, imale, I'm late to school. But no matter what kind of trouble you've gotten into with your mother in the past, you should really appreciate her. As Israelis say, yesh rak ima echad, or you only have one mother. So no matter how much you might get on your nerves, never take her for granted. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. It looks like Wednesday will be a perfect beach day with sunny skies and a high of 82 degrees. Thursday should be cloudier and the temperature will drop down to 66. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.91 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tonight.